Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Welcome to the Fearless Freedom Podcast. This is Dr. G. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in another week. Today, we have an amazing treat. We bring it. And it is Jennie Wright. Jennie, can you tell the audience who you are and what you are up to?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, first of all. Second, my name is Jennie Wright, as you heard, and what I do is I help people build their email marketing lists, as well as create funnels and lead attraction. So I work as I run my own online business, I help people build their online businesses to be bigger and better.
Awesome. And then, of course, your vocation at the moment is quite timely because there are a lot of people now who are, I think somebody was telling me they were looking on Google and they were searching home-based business and it was like number one, number one or two on the most searched item. Which I think is fascinating because I've always been a proponent for, having multiple streams of income and, having a home-based business as one of them. And, sometimes people look at you a little crazy when you do that, but it is relevant now. Absolutely relevant. So, what you do is also very relevant because now you're offering a way or you're offering to help people to maximize that effort, which is great. So,
thank you. Yeah, it's really, really timely. I never even thought it would be, but I've been doing this since 2012.
Oh, wow.
I've been doing this since 2012 full time, but it's, I'm dealing with a lot of people right now who are trying to transition and trying to pivot. So there's a lot of that happening and I'm just glad I can help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So you just mentioned that you started this in 2012. What were you doing before that? And what made you transition into this? See, I told you I was going to get it out.
Oh my God. Yes, you do. You're good. Before 2012, I actually worked in a corporate environment. I worked in gold mining, funny enough. And I worked in a corporate office for communications and investor relations. And I, sometimes it was a startup, and sometimes these startup companies, they add people, they let people go. So I was actually packaged out in early March of 2012.
Okay.
And, before that, I worked in wholesale and retail. I worked in marketing for a large big box company. But it was by accident that I fell into this. It was a complete and utter accident. I actually was trying to get a regular day job, and my best friend, who's a real estate agent, needed some help with getting her newsletter out and things like that. And she said, "Have you ever heard of a virtual assistant?" And I'm like, "What the heck is a virtual assistant?"
Mm-hmm.
And so I became her virtual assistant. I ended up helping her with email, and I ended up helping her with a couple of things. And from there it grew because all of a sudden all of her other real estate friends wanted my help. And then lo and behold, I taught myself how to build websites, and it all started from there.
Awesome. So you mentioned a big transition. So you were in corporate America and you were also involved in a startup, right? And so you went from corporate America, big box, to startup. And then you had to make another transition to being on your own, packaged out of the situation. How did you deal, or did you have fear associated with that?
Oh God. Well, there was a lot going on in that period of time. So if you want to get real and talk about fear, so that was 2012. In 2010, I had emergency surgery, and there was a lot of, I don't want to call it PTSD because I think that's putting a moniker that, I haven't been diagnosed with, but if I could relate all the symptoms to it, it would be really darn close. They called it white coat syndrome at the time, which was, I didn't want to be seen or touched by doctors. I freaked out at the idea of all this kind of stuff. Because I went through a really traumatic experience in 2010 with this emergency surgery, because I ended up in ICU, and
oh wow,
there was a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. And when I came back to work, I was in a different job, not the startup that I told you about. I was in a different gold mining company, but I had experienced some corporate bullying by my then boss. Okay. And it added to the situation and eventually she was let go from the company. But by then I felt like where I was quite tainted.
Right.
And so I was actually headhunted into the startup that I was telling you about. And then I went there for a fresh start, but I basically went from one not so awesome situation to another, with similar experiences. And I was very glad actually that I was packaged out of that job, because I didn't know how long it was going to be able to last. There was a lot there. And when they let me out, that wasn't even the worst of it. I was very, very afraid of what was going to come next. I luckily had a bit of runway financially.
Okay.
To be able to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, I squandered that a little bit. I think not everybody jumps out of one thing and is like, yay, I'm just going to jump into the next thing. It took a while to adjust. And quite honestly, I didn't do so great. I'm very lucky that I have a very supportive partner that was encouraging and helping me. But had I been left to my own devices, I really don't know what would have happened.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. Because I feel like, oftentimes we are in situations and we may not realize that it's something that happened to us or something that we experienced previously that's really the driving force behind that particular situation. Mm-hmm. So, you had a traumatic thing happen to you. It doesn't sound like you had an opportunity to reconcile your feelings on that and, go through therapy even. It doesn't sound like that happened. And so what that does is it just allows for something else to build and for a lot of negativity to enter your life. And so that's what it kind of sounds like happened. So I apologize to that you had to experience the bullying, because that is something that unfortunately we're hearing more and more about, because people hadn't been talking about it before, but now we're talking more about it and realizing that the stuff that happened in high school continues into adulthood and into corporate America and into all the things. It just takes a little different form, and particularly comes very hurtfully from someone who is to be your guide in a process. Your superior doing that to you is like even more of a blow,
Oh, absolutely.
So, but you were able to, get out of that situation. Not, obviously, the package, getting packaged out was a gift to you. It may not have seemed completely like that at the time, because nobody feels that way when they're getting laid off. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm getting laid off right now. So, nobody feels that way at that moment. But oftentimes when we look at things through the retrospectoscope, we can say, oh yeah, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because now I don't have to quit. Because, when you quit, you don't get the severance or unemployment or whatever. And so you had that advantage. And then you were now pushed into a space, perhaps a space of discomfort, because, you're used to having a particular thing happen on a regular basis, either, once a month or twice a month, money entering your bank account. And then now you don't have that, and you're having to tap into your reserve or rely on your people. You know what I mean? And so that can be a little unnerving. It can be a place of discomfort. And it can also be the place, which sounds like for you, where you start to reinvent yourself. You start to look for opportunities. You start to figure out how you're going to be better than you were yesterday. Maybe you might start to think about, well, how can I do personal development, or how can I, train in a particular area, whatever it is. But you got to that place of discomfort and you essentially faced your fear, right?
I did, but it was a delayed phase of fear. It really was. And I don't typically and historically handle that stuff very, very well. At least I didn't at the time. I mean, I've learned a lot. It feels like yesterday, but honestly, it's been, 8 years. But that fear and that worry and everything that goes along with it actually stems, right from actually the 2010 situation that I experienced, and a situation that actually happened a little bit earlier and things like that. So there's a lot there, but the resilience of being an entrepreneur, the resilience of being able to take a tough situation, be it trying to grow your business, which is a daily task, having no reliable source of income from anybody else except for what you produce. There's fear in that, but there's also real satisfaction saying, I woke up today and I worked my butt off, and I closed 2 people and they think what I do is valuable. Like there's actually a lot more, there's a lot more of a feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment and even self-worth than what I had when I was working in corporate, because you're really, I'm selling digital products. I'm selling how to work with me and coach with me and build funnels with me and,
right,
things like that. But what I'm really selling is me and my skill. And I feel more valued in a lot of ways now than I did then. I couldn't have even foreseen it. I don't think anybody can, but it definitely has an effect on you as a person.
Absolutely. And, you hit the nail on the head when you said there is a certain amount of resilience, a certain amount of mental toughness that goes along with being an entrepreneur. Oh my gosh, that is so true.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you never realize like how you are able to understand how to deal with the word no. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, like how many times in your life before you did this, did you ask people for something and then were told no?
Oh yeah, lots.
Right.
In
So
some ways, but it's different in corporate. It's really different. When people talk or when you ask for something, there's a whole different way of approaching it when you've got that corporate ladder thing or the corporate feel of it. Now, the decision ends on me. If I don't wake up in the morning and get the work done, it doesn't get done. No has a different feel.
yes.
But luckily, when I worked in the big box store that I told you about before,
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to do sales. So I had face-to-face sales, I had cold call sales. And so I'd learned then, and I was in that team, I was in a marketing team for I think 3 or 4 years. And I learned in that team how to handle the no and to reset.
Got it.
When you're doing sales, face-to-face sales, cold call sales and everything, you do get a lot of no's. And if you allow it, the no's change your script, whatever that script is, right? And that script affects your confidence and how you feel about yourself and your ability to sell the product or program that you're trying to do. And excuse me, doing those sales, actually, I started developing that resilience, but I had the safety net of the fact that I was getting a paycheck regardless of whether or not I made a sale.
Right.
So that's one
right.
thing. But I developed the skill. And so now that the skill depends completely on me and so does the paycheck.
Right. Right.
I pull a lot from that. I pull a lot from that experience to make sure that happens. And I do a lot of mental work and a lot of self-work on how to keep going with the sale, how to keep going through tough times. I even had an incident when I first started this business where I wasn't able to pay the rent, quite honestly. And there was an eviction note. I got an eviction notice. You have 30 days to pay the rent or they're going to get a sheriff and they're going to start kicking you out. And I had to do sales calls. I had to mentally say, okay, I can't worry about the fact that there's an eviction notice on my kitchen table right now.
Right.
And I've got to do my job. And I can't come across as desperate, because as soon as you do sales calls or as soon as you do anything in your business and people can smell that desperation, and trust me, they can smell it through the phone.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to get the sale. So I had to literally just do my sales calls and just be like, oh, well, right now there's food in the fridge and right now the lights are on and the water's running and right now nobody can come into my apartment and kick me out. So for now I'm A-okay. Let's just go do this. And I would compartmentalize what was happening in real life and just go and help and serve people. And when I help and serve people without any agenda as to the result I'm trying to achieve, except for helping them, they will say to me, how can I work with you? And I don't even have to sell at that point. that's just an outcome. And that's really powerful.
Right. No, that's extremely powerful. And I think that is a message that will definitely assuage the fears of those currently who are embarking on, a business of their own, right? Or making a major transition within their careers, because, particularly if it's something that involves sales, you're absolutely right. Like, I could tell when someone is desperate, right? Because your language, your demeanor, the sound of your voice, everything. It's similar to when you're on the phone and you're smiling and you're having a conversation. The way that your voice sounds is very different than when you're not smiling. So those little things, they definitely get delivered, and the person on the receiving end can tell. And nobody usually wants to work with someone who they feel like, oh, I'm just a number for this person, or, oh, I'm just, this person sounds really desperate, or
I'm just dollars in their bank account.
Exactly. Or maybe they may have, maybe they look at it as a negative thing, and then they decide to take advantage, So most humans are not this way, but I mean, there are some that are, and so they can definitely tell when you are coming across as desperate. So no, that's great. That's a great pearl and great practical advice, because, a lot of times we do get desperate, it's getting to the end of the month and we're like, oh, we haven't met, our number or whatever. And then you start getting crazy. But as you said, those are the times when you're not going to see the production, because people are going to sense that right away. And people really just want you to be trustworthy. And the only way they're going to know that you're trustworthy is if they know, like, and trust you, right? So if they get the vibe that you are desperate, they're not going, their guard is going to come up immediately. Like, the hairs are going to raise, and they're just going to be very suspicious because they can tell that you're desperate.
Oh, so, yeah. It comes off of you like almost like a scent.
Yes.
And people know. So as an entrepreneur, somebody who has to do sales, and I'm always in sales mode. I'm always trying to help and serve. But in the back of my mind, yes, I absolutely am trying to create income for my business and for my family. So, but you learn, and that's one of the advantages of doing what you do, is you learn how to compartmentalize things. Because honestly, we all have stuff, right? We have stuff. Yes. Everybody's got the stuff. Everybody's got stuff. But if you can say inside my office, or as soon as, the Zoom call starts or the telephone call starts or whatever the case is, that all of that gets just put aside for the time being, and you can focus on what you're trying to do and not let it permeate, then you're going to have a better success. Like, when I used to let my, real life problems bother what I would be doing in sales or what I'd be doing in the business early on, the impact was huge. I had a really short fuse in the beginning, because I do feel that I was quite traumatized by the series of events that happened in a short span of time, a couple of years.
Right.
And I know that I had a short fuse. I had a short fuse for myself, for my family, for those around me, and also for her clients. And there was only so much I could do before I kind of had a little bit of a big huff moment. And when I had these moments, people suffered around me.
Gotcha.
And there was a lot, and there was no time in my eyes, for therapy or anything like that. It was just like, you got to deal, you got to keep moving. And eventually, quite honestly, it all led to burnout. It led to pretty much frying my thyroid and a bunch of other things, mentally and physically and medically. But at some point, your body's going to say, you're dealing with this. You're dealing with it now.
Right.
Tough on you. Figure it out. And you can only compartmentalize for so long, and then you can't do it anymore. So,
it's true.
I'd say the past 16 to 18 months has been, my body's like, you're dealing with your stuff, and you're dealing with it now. And we've waited long enough. It's been a long time, and this is happening. So, suck it up, buttercup, and here we go. And things get impacted by that. Your personal life gets impacted. Your relationships get impacted, and so does the business.
Absolutely.
But there's always a light around the corner for that, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know it's not easy to be vulnerable and, share your story, but I have to tell you that, every single time you share your story, you may not realize the impact, but it is a great one because somebody listening to the show today could be experiencing one or more of the things that you have experienced. And it is a tremendous encouragement, inspiration, and help to them. So, definitely thank you for doing that. Because I know it's not easy to talk about ourselves and talk about the things we're going through. And, it's not comfortable. So I appreciate that.
It can be challenging.
Yes,
It's my
indeed.
pleasure. And I mean, I can go into, there's so much detail that I'm not really going into because we're talking about it lightly, but I don't have a problem sharing this story at this point. I think in the moment, had you asked me even 4 years ago, I don't think I could have talked about it.
Right.
But I'm in a much better place to be able to say that the journey that I'm on as an entrepreneur and the journey that I'm on as, being a woman in business and dealing with the stuff that I've had to deal with over the years, I'm in a much better place to talk about it. And I do realize that when I talk about it, oddly enough, I heal a bit as well.
Absolutely.
But the journey isn't easy by any means. But if anybody else hears the things that I've experienced and goes, wow, okay, well, there's hope and there's light. Like I'll be really blunt and honest. Like I went through a really dark depression and had to come out the other side of it. And it took a couple of years. And this is after I was laid off. So,
gotcha. Yeah.
There was the inability. Some days it was, I got my pajamas off and put clothes on today. Like that was a big thing. Or, I took a shower today and had breakfast. Like that was an accomplishment on some days. And then other days it was like, I can do everything. And, you do 5, 6, 7 things. And then the next day you're done. You're watching Oprah and that's all you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's real. That is real.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm really happy to hear though, that you have emerged from that and that you are now thriving, because that is huge, right? To have gone through that, gone to those depths, and then be able to come back up and see the sunlight. Because I'm pretty sure that there were times when you basically were questioning perhaps maybe, why did I get up today? Or I don't even know if I can get out of bed today. So, I mean, that's, it's pretty serious. And so I'm just thankful that you are not in that place right now, and that you can recognize it if you ever start getting back into it, which is the most important piece. Because that is something that, I see in the emergency department, and it is heartbreaking because you see people who have intact, functional lives, who are contributing to society, who are basically derailed dramatically by this process. And nobody's immune to it. We can all have it happen to us. And it is so important to have recognition of it when you're there, and then having ways forward to get out of there. So whether we're talking about full-on depression or depressive syndrome, or we're talking about burnout, which you alluded to before, both places are dark places, and both places require a lifeline of some sort. But you can't do either if you don't recognize that you're in that situation. So that's the reason why I'm like, wow, yeah, no, I'm super happy that you're not there anymore.
Thank you. And you must see so much in your job. I mean, you see a lot of what's going on. And I mean, you see it at a grander scale and a bigger number at a deeper level. And, how do you, like, you must get impacted by this as well.
Oh, absolutely. Now, so my backstory is that I did go through burnout, and I literally got to the point where I was going to walk away from medicine entirely. And, as you experienced, it's not something that happens like right away. It's not something that it's not like you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and like, oh, I got a black eye, or, you don't see it, because it's something that happens very, like, it's insidious. you know, it
Very
happens
insidious.
over, it happens over, like it just kind of creeps into your life to become the new normal. And so you don't recognize it. And, you know, fortunately for me, I discovered a group, an accountability group, and I basically entered the recovery mode and recognition mode through the avenue of, you know, exercise. So I joined an exercise group, and then I realized, oh my God, I'm really not happy right now. Like, you know, I feel so much happier now. Why do I feel so different than I felt, you know, a few months ago? And then that led me to the discovery of, wow, I was really not, you know, not having a healthy relationship with my job and with my life, because I honestly thought that it was normal to wake up, because I work nights, to wake up at, you know, 10 o'clock or 10:15, and then talk myself into sitting upright in the bed, talk myself into swinging my legs around, talk myself into putting my feet on the floor, talk myself into putting one foot in front of the other. And then when I get to the hospital, sit in the parking lot with my hands gripped around the steering wheel in like a death grip, and then having to talk each and every finger and both thumbs off, you know, off the ledge, like let go of the steering wheel, girl, and then go into the hospital. I mean, what is that? That's not normal. And and that became normal when, you know, before that, the scenario was, I'm super excited to do this because I've trained so long to learn how to do this, and I want to go serve my patients. Like, that was the attitude. We went from that attitude and that happy person to the other person who was sitting in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel and having to talk her body parts to unleash the grip and open the door and put feet on asphalt. So I get it. Totally get it. You know, so it's a tricky thing, because, you know, you can be in it and then find your way out of it. You can find your way out of it inadvertently. You can find your way out of it from, you know, someone recognizing it and pointing it out to you. I mean, there's so many different ways, but the key thing is that you find your way out, or you have a way out. And the number one way in which you can do that is by recognizing that there's a problem. You know, like everything else is, if you don't recognize if you're an alcoholic and you don't recognize that there's a problem, you're never going to stop drinking, because you're going to think that's normal. You know, you're going to be like, oh, if I stop drinking, then I'm going to have like withdrawal symptoms. So I don't want that, because that's dangerous and that can kill me. So I'm going to keep drinking. So this is what happens. So it's just like really, really tricky in that way.
No,
so that's why I was saying I'm super happy that you get out of it, because, you know, some people are not as lucky. So, you know, I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. It's hard. And it's not perfect, but, you know, I honestly would not want it any other way. Like although the experiences I've had have been scary or traumatic or worrisome, you know, I didn't think what seemed like a very simple situation or a simple surgery or anything was going to put me in a intensive care and have all these different problems and stuff like that. But looking back, I don't think I would change the experience in some ways. I know that seems odd. Like, gee, Jennie, thanks for going through trauma. What do you mean you want to go through it again? No, I don't want to go through it again, but I'm also at the same time wouldn't say I wouldn't go back and change it, because it's really made me who I am. And I think I'm a more empathetic person. And a more understanding person now, although I had to go through anger, because I felt used and abused, quite honestly, by, and this is nothing against you as a person in the medical industry, but I felt like I wasn't a person. I was just patient number X, you know, in bed 3 in room 514.
Gotcha.
And that was traumatic, because, you know, I ended up with a permanent device. I have a pacemaker, and it was all about the pacemaker. It wasn't about Jennie.
Gotcha.
How's the pacemaker doing today? You know, how's the pacemaker doing? How's the pacemaker doing? And it's not like, how's Jennie dealing with the fact that she has a piece of machinery in her chest that suddenly kicks in and takes over her heartbeat? You know what I mean?
Right.
And what are the effects? Like, there's a lot of effects of feeling a pacemaker take over your heart. People don't talk about it, but there should be studies done about, you know, how it impacts you to feel something mechanical regulate your heartbeat. It's a very strange feeling, let me tell you. But I wouldn't change the past. I would say that like I said, I've become a lot more of an empathetic person. I think I understand people's stories better, and I think I can use people's stories better in their marketing and helping them sell their programs, product and services. So instead of, I think before all this, I would have asked somebody, so, tell me what you do and why you want, like how you want to help people or something like that. But now
Right.
the questions are more like, why are you doing this? What's your, what's the backstory on it? Why are you so inclined, like, to talk about this and to help people out? I mean, even you as an example, you work night shift and you work you work in medicine, and here you are doing this incredible podcast, trying to talk about fear and all sorts of different areas that are helpful to people. There's a story there, and it really piques my interest and really makes me wonder, like, all the backstory on that. And that's where I think this has helped.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I feel like that's when you get the heart put into the advertising, into the marketing, because, like, everybody likes a good story. We all do. I mean, that's just what we have been experiencing from the beginning of time. There was an oral history that was passed down before we had another way of communicating with each other. Like, grandpa would tell a story to the grandchildren and the children, and then they would tell it. And so that's how you would perpetuate the history of people. And so that's why I think we really love stories. And so if we have a story to share, and it sounds like when you ask about the why, you're tapping into that, it's a much more powerful way to get people to know, like, and trust you, and then therefore buy from you. I mean, it's
correct.
It's really powerful. Absolutely. And if you want to know my story, why I started the podcast. So basically, I started it because I have a fear of public speaking. I have a visceral fear of public speaking.
No.
And I do. It's mitigated and tempered now, but I really do.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's just only because I do it as much as I possibly can. So I get on stages as much as I can. And I do this. I started a podcast because of that fear. I figured it would be a great way to meet people and take them on the journey of me facing my fear. And that's basically why it got started.
It's your own version of immersion therapy.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
I love that.
And so that's the story. And so people, they hear that and they're like, oh, wow. Yeah. And it makes them think about their fears. And then it makes them also think about how they can have ways forward in facing those fears. So yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah. So, I mean, you're doing incredible work. I definitely see that. And I definitely want people to be able to reach out to you after listening to this episode, because I know they're going to want to. I know they are. Because he told your story. You know what I mean? And so how can they best reach out to you?
I'm a real reach out and talk to me kind of person. I don't like to put a lot of barriers between me and people. So honestly, definitely come and find me. You can find me most of the time on Facebook. It's Jennie Wright. My business page is Jennie Wright, JLW. And seriously, send me an email, jennie@jenniewright.com. My website is, at the time that we're recording this, is under construction. It looks like a hot mess. But maybe by the time this comes out, it'll look better. But don't judge me on my website, guys. Come and find me on the channels where I actually am. Reach out to me and let's have a conversation.
Awesome. You know what? Speaking of conversations, this one was incredible, and I am kind of sad it has to come to an end. But yeah, no, it's kind of fun. But, we do have a tradition on the show, and it is the 3 fill in the blanks. Are you ready, Jennie?
I am.
Okay, awesome. So the first one is, if I am fearless, I will.
Okay, I've been thinking about this since we started. I really have, because I was like, I'm going to be put on the spot, and I've really got to come up with something good. If I am fearless, I will love myself.
Awesome. The next one is, to me, fearless freedom means.
Okay. To me, fearless freedom means living authentically, being open and honest, not being afraid of getting hurt.
Nice. And then last but not least, my battle cry is.
Go build your list. Go build your email list. I need to scream that from the tops of the rooftops here.
I need to learn that from you because let me tell you, my email list is a hot mess. But yeah, so that's definitely something that I need to work on too. So I appreciate that. So yes, so everybody knows how to reach you, and we had an awesome conversation. I am super excited about that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Honestly, I really appreciate the opportunity, and you're fabulous. So it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Aw, it's like a love fest over here. Awesome.